As we have set up Node along with npm and also plugins such as Yo and code generators, we can use command line and start developing the code. However, it is not practical to develop the code using command line. We need to have a full-blown IDE, which stands for Interactive Development Environment, which will facilitate us not only with a GUI to develop the code, but also plugins to seamlessly use the code versioning tools and also other capabilities such as refactoring, navigating through the files, etc. As our productivity will be a lot more higher when it comes to using IDE to develop the applications, let us go ahead and install IDE to develop node-based applications. There are several alternatives which are free as well as paid. The most popular ones are Sublime, Atom, Visual Studio Code. All these are free IDEs. On top of these things, we have a premium IDE called as WebStorm, which gives us a lot more features, but it is a bit expensive. So you can actually set up whatever tool you want. In our case, I'll be setting up Visual Studio Code. To set up Visual Studio Code, we just have to go to the browser and search for Visual Studio Code and hit enter. Then you can go to this and say download for Windows. It started downloading. The size of this downloadable is 48.7 MB and it is of type exe, which is nothing but an executable file. So it is still downloading. Once it is downloaded, we can actually double click on this and we should be able to install without much of challenges. Now it is downloaded. We can just double click on this and then say next, accept the agreement, next, next, next. If you want to create a desktop icon, you can choose this. However, I don't want to create a desktop icon. I want to leave this add to path so that we'll be able to launch from the command prompt if it is required. And then we can say next and install. It will take care of installation of Visual Studio Code on our PC. Same steps can be followed on Mac or Linux based desktops. The steps are not much of difference compared to Windows. We can enable this launch Visual Studio Code so that we can start the Visual Studio Code immediately and then we can click on finish. If you want to get some help with respect to Visual Studio Code, you can actually access this documentation and understand the tool a bit better. You can also go to the tool and you can actually go through this landing page and understand what this tool is all about. You can install support for tools and languages like JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, etc. We will actually take care of these things at a later point in time. For now, we will not be touching this. We can also use this tool as VIM editor. So all VI based commands will work if you actually install plugin or change the settings as VIM and so on and so forth. Now, as we have already created a testing project using Yo with ES6, what we can do is we can say file and then open folder, go to C drive, users, dgadi. In this, we have documents. So we can open documents, product engineering, and then testing, and then say select folder. It will open the project here. Now, if you want to review app.js, you can double click on this and you can actually see the app.js. If you want to increase the font, you can actually go to file, preferences, settings, then text editor, font, and then we can increase the font size. In this case, I'm increasing to 24 so that things are visible to you. And then you can see that the size of the text increased automatically for us. So this is how you can actually set up. Because it is using ES6 style, you can see const here. Otherwise, it would have been a different keyword. I think with ES5, we have different way of defining immutable variables. With ES6, it is const. Okay, so this is how you can actually set up Visual Studio Code and open the existing project, and you can start developing the applications using this interface, which will actually improve your productivity many-fold compared to using the command line approach. We can also launch terminal by saying terminal, new terminal. You can see here it took us to this project directory directly using command line. Now, if you want to develop code using command line or run the application or perform whatever task you want to, you can do so. I am just launching Node here. And then if Node have launched the console, then we should be able to write the code. However, it did not launch. To facilitate where Node is launched, we have to go to environment variables and we have to set the path properly. However, I am able to launch Node from the command line here, but it is not letting me to do so using the terminal. Let us also validate by saying npm start. Even npm is not working. So if we set environment variables, it should work. So let us understand where this node is installed. For that, we can go to the file explorer, then local disk C, program files, search for node.js, and you can see the node and npm binaries here. So we can take this path, go to environment variables, open this path. It should be able to identify. I think it is a side effect of using Windows. With Windows, we have issues launching terminal and running directly from here. But on Mac and Linux, it will work without much of challenges. For that reason, because it is Windows specific, I'm not going to troubleshoot here. Typically, it should be able to launch Node and npm. It works with Mac or Linux, but on Windows it has some issues. I don't know how to make sure these commands run using the terminal which is launched as part of this Visual Studio Code. If we actually use the DOS prompt, we are able to launch Node and also run the application using npm start. Both of them are working using DOS prompt. So when we use Windows, we will try to use DOS prompt and we will try to start the application rather than using terminal that comes as part of the Visual Studio Code. That being said, we have set up Visual Studio Code successfully and also opened the project. And we'll go ahead and come back to Visual Studio Code at a later point in time once we explore the MongoDB in detail. While developing applications using Node and Express to interact with MongoDB and perform the database operations as part of our application flow.